Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Landcast. I'm Brandon Chasteen, and I'm here with Jeremy Chasteen. We're the owners of Chasteen Land and Title. Jeremy, how's it going?
Pretty good, Brandon. Pretty good. Can't
Great.
complain.
Well, yeah, me neither. You didn't ask, but I'll say me neither. So today we have Seth Whitehead with us. He's the executive director of the Illinois Petroleum Resources Board. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing
Pretty
fine.
good.
Where are you located exactly?
I'm in Vandalia, Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah, we go there occasionally. What's the
It
weather
was
like over there?
once-
Go ahead.
It is going to be beautiful today, and my wife is unhappy with that because tomorrow it's going to be about 55 for a high. She's a school teacher, so she's got to be in a classroom all day. So I'm working at the home office today, so I'll get to step out and enjoy it a little bit.
Said that you are the executive director for the Illinois Petroleum Resources Board. Why don't you tell us a bit about what that is and what you do?
Okay, so we represent the oil producers of Illinois, public outreach and education outreach, also do some environmental restoration, mainly abandoned tank batteries in the state. So that's all voluntarily funded by the oil producers and royalty owners of Illinois. So in the industry, they refer to it as a checkoff program. So a small percentage of the revenue generated from each barrel of oil sold in Illinois goes to fund our program. There's similar programs in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Ohio. And I think it's been pretty effective. I believe it was launched in 1998. So we've done a lot of outreach on behalf of the industry. And so that's basically what I do all day, every day. About a quarter of our budget's for the restoration work that we do. So we've been able to restore about 600 abandoned oil field sites throughout the state. Also do a ton of school presentations and just general PR, whether it be through traditional media, through social media, digital outreach, just a wide variety of different things to educate folks on our industry.
How long have you been with the Illinois Resource Board?
It'll be 8 years in November, so it's sneaking up on a decade, and it's gone fast. A lot of folks in the industry said, I can't believe you've been doing this long, but it's been easily my favorite job that I've ever had. You know, each day is a little different, and you meet a lot of really great people. You guys, for instance, from month to month, you never know kind of what the day is going to bring. And you guys probably have dealt with the Landman effect, the TV show, and probably some misconceptions about what that job entails.
Yep, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
We spend a lot of time explaining that, Billy Bob Thornton is not really a landman.
Yep.
And a lot of the things that happen in that show are not typical for that particular career. So
yeah, we started
fun to talk about.
Yeah, we started in Texas and did our landman work there, and we were kidnapped by the cartel 0 times.
Have you guys been hit in the face with a hammer and we're fine the next day?
Yep.
That's not typical.
We do have amazing healing abilities as landmen. That's part of
I always thought
territory.
So. I suspected that.
So you said that you've been with this program for 8 years. What was your background before that?
Before I came to IPRB, I worked for FTI Consulting, which one of their clients is the Illinois, the IPAA.
Okay.
And for a program that they put in place, it's been 15 years ago now, called Energy in Depth, where it's rapid response, mainly media response, and started out focused on hydraulic fracturing.
Okay.
And then kind of expanded into just general energy issues and focus on oil and gas, but kind of response to some of the media coverage that was particularly coming out in about 2012, between 2012 and 2014, that was just over the top, inaccurate, and to respond to that was really in a really effective program. So I was the team lead for Energy in Depth for, I believe, about 4 or 5 years. actually worked as a field director for Energy in Depth in Illinois when a lot of leasing was going on for high volume hydraulic fracturing in the state.
Yep.
So that's how I've kind of got a relationship built with the folks here in the industry in Illinois, where I'm from and where my family has worked in this industry for going back 4 generations. So
Wow.
it's a really natural fit. And going way back, my background was journalism. That's my degrees in journalism from SIU Carbondale. I had the writing skills and kind of learned everything else on the fly, and now do a lot of public speaking, just wear a lot of different hats, graphic design, just all communications to educate folks on our industry.
Before this, when you were with the rapid response team, was it just Illinois, or were you representing other states as well? Because we had that in Texas. We did some leasing in the Barnett Shale, and probably right around 2012-ish, there was a lot of pushback, just because there's, like you said, there was a lot of news coming out about the dangers of fracking. And, anytime there was like a minor low-level earthquake, yeah, that was registered, it was like, this is what's going to happen. We're all going to, these earthquakes are going to take us down.
Yeah. Well, I started off focusing just on Illinois and the issues that were going on here with media coverage. And then IPRB and FTI Consulting brought me on to handle the national program. So just addressing all sorts of media coverage and things that were going on throughout the country and even outside of the country. I remember one time doing an interview with the BBC, which was
cool.
was a real trip, something I never thought I would be doing. So it takes you a lot of different places. And I mean, I guess I did a good enough job to catch the eyes of, the Illinois folks never really lost contact with me. I was always in contact with them more on just a casual, friendly level. So when this position came open, it just seemed like a natural fit. And my heart was always kind of in Illinois. As I mentioned, my family, we have a little oil production, and I've always worked in the industry on some level. So it's been great to come back and focus on Illinois.
So as you were doing that work, did you find it difficult to find common ground or to make people aware of what you were trying to do?
The climate has changed dramatically, and especially the last 4 or 5 years. But when this was a really hot button issue, and fracking was literally the F word, it sounded like the F word.
Yeah.
It drew the kind of emotional response from people. When I first started, it was very stressful. And I mean, the other side of this issue was playing offense mainly. Over the last few years, people have kind of come to embrace energy reality. You still have a lot of people that realize that we have to have oil and gas, and it's preferable to produce as much here as we can. But there's still a group of people that just don't like that. So that's kind of how things have changed. Fortunately, we've been able to go on offense a little bit as far as our industry basically capitalize on folks realizing that we need to have all the energy sources possible as much as possible. And things have changed a lot. It's less stressful, still a challenge. I mean, it's not like it's a breeze now or anything, but it's gotten easier.
Well, you say that you go to schools and you give presentations at schools and things like that. What age groups are you doing that for?
Everything between as young as third graders to high school seniors, and occasionally I've done a few podcasts with groups of college students as well. So it's a wide variety. I think the interesting thing that I've learned is you assume that people have preconceived notions, educators, the students, they're more just curious about how they don't know anything about the energy industry at all. And really, even going up into the Chicago area, there's been lot of open-mindedness, and it's not like you go into a hostile situation where they just
Okay.
assume that you're a bad guy representing bad people. And I think that's a lesson I've learned, and would encourage everybody to be willing to get out there, put yourself out there. You'd be surprised at how rational people are and curious to learn the facts. So it's been a really positive experience. And for years, IPRB didn't. We stopped going out to schools and things like that. And actually, we have a teachers program. We would bring the teachers in to Mount Vernon and spend a week field trips out in the oil field and drilling sites and things like that. But now we've expanded it back out to actually traveling to these schools and interacting face to face in the classroom.
That's great. It sounds like
yeah.
you're doing that all over the state too. I mean, if you're going all the way up
Yeah,
to Chicago.
we've been as far north as Aurora and the Rockford area,
Yeah.
and just about everywhere, anywhere over. It's a big state,
Yep.
and people don't realize how big Illinois is. So it's a lot to cover, but we've hit all just about every region of the state over the last 8 years.
So are these schools reaching out to you, or are you reaching out to them? How's that working?
Mainly we make contacts when we have the teachers down for our summer teachers program, and they get to know us and get to see that we're just regular people. And Illinois, it's all small companies. It's none of the majors are here anymore. So one of the things, it's not a corporate like culture in our industry. Everybody is really open to. We don't sit in committee meetings and overanalyze things or focus group things and see, make sure everything is just perfect. We just kind of have a core group of volunteers, and we're able to move pretty fast. And like these teachers have come down, and there's been a good relationship built, so they'll invite us to the schools. And a lot of the things we do, we've tried to keep up with the technology. So our website and our social media has a pretty wide reach, and they discover us that way as well.
Yeah, that was actually one of the first things. I think I saw you guys last year at the IOGA, and one, I was impressed with the booth. I was like, oh man, they know what they're doing. And then I went onto y'all's social, and I was like, oh man, they're doing a good job with outreach. That was my thought.
I appreciate that, because there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes, and I kind of tell this to my kids as well. You've got to get up every day, and whether you feel like it or not, just keep pushing. So we try to keep real consistent with post something somewhere every day. Make sure it's topical. So right now, it's a lot of people are talking about gas prices. So we're working on several different ways to explain the many different factors that go into what you pay at the pump. And in our state, a big part of the story is, right off the bat, 84 cents of that is taxes. So price of crude oil could drop to zero, and you're still going to pay about $1 a gallon. So that's important to know. So I always try to respond to something that's in the news. That's going to get traction. And also with the op-eds and letters to the editor that I submit, it's usually responding to something that people are talking about in that very moment. So
it's interesting. So you said you bring the teachers down to you guys, and they go into the oil fields. And that we don't really have Chevron, we don't have Exxon, those big companies that are here doing the drilling in Illinois and this tri-state area and the basin. So when Jeremy and I were first building this company, we would drive to some of these small producers to try and talk to them. And you are literally driving like onto a farm, right? And that's where they have their. And so I think people don't realize how family driven a lot of this is in Illinois. It's like their backyards. And so they're part of the community. They're drilling on their land. This is the people they know, right? It is very communal in a way that, when people are thinking, they're thinking of the big things off the coast, right? The rigs and stuff like that. And it's just.
Right. People think that everybody's big oil. We are not big oil. Our largest producer is Campbell Energy, and based right there in Carmi, Illinois. Population, I think 5,000. They also farm 18,000 acres, produce about 4,500 barrels per day. So we kind of compare that to Exxon and Saudi Aramco, which we're talking, those companies are millions of barrels per day. Just to give a little perspective on that. So that's one thing we really emphasize is these are, I mean, if you see a pump jack out there bobbing up and down, there's a pretty good chance that the operator lives right there in your community.
Has that always, because Brandon and I started this company, I think 14 years ago this year. We were working in the Illinois basin at that time, doing some coal projects, doing some oil and gas projects as just contractors. So I guess my question is has it always been that way with Illinois? Has it always been just small companies or?
It has not. The last wave of majors, Exxon left the state in, I believe it was the late 80s, early 90s. So Exxon, in where I live in Vandalia, there's a giant oil field, the Loudon oil field, and Exxon discovered that and had production there for many decades. So, but they left in the late 80s. I think the last major in the state of Illinois was Rex Energy, and that was up till about 2014. So all independents now. So one thing we do with IPRB is also highlight the history of Illinois because it's fascinating, especially, our biggest oil boom occurred right before World War II, and we shot up to be the number 3 producer by about 1940. And of course, all the majors were in then because it was Illinois is right up there with Texas and Oklahoma at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And people throughout Southern Illinois, particularly, really have no idea of the history and the importance of the Illinois oil industry to World War II because there's a legendary quote that it's more of a folklore right now than it is proven fact that FDR said, "Thank God for Salem, Illinois," because there was so much production coming out of the Salem field right before World War II that it was a game changer as far as what would come in just the few years after that. And we always emphasize that the Allied forces won World War II because the Axis powers just ran out of gas, literally.
Yep.
That was one of the major factors. So, and we were a big part of that. Of course, Texas and Oklahoma were bigger, but we were right up there for a short period of time because of the discoveries made right in basically everybody's backyard down here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's interesting.
So were the changes then that happened because they tapped out or just because bigger plays were found? Or do you?
Yeah. There would, the larger companies are going to go where the hot prospects are.
Yep.
But I always think that, our production's down right now. But if you look back through history, there's always been some new technology that has come along that has revived the industry. And I think that'll happen again. Everybody kind of thought it was going to be horizontal drilling and high volume hydraulic fracturing.
Yep.
That didn't work out here for several factors. Several reasons, but there's still a ton of oil in the Illinois basin to be discovered. It's going to take deeper drilling probably, and some sort of technology that's being employed in some other region. But I think that we'll have another oil boom, maybe not as soon as everybody hopes for, but I think it's going to happen one of these years for sure.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we've done a lot of research or a lot of tidal down in White County. So I've seen exactly what you were talking about around in the 1930s. You get a lot of leases and then a lot of severances. And I actually had no idea that Illinois was up there with Oklahoma and Texas. I had always assumed that it was not that it wasn't a large producer. I mean, obviously the Illinois basin is the Illinois basin, but I had no idea that it was on that level.
Yeah, on 2 different occasions, we've been the number 3 producer. The first was in the early 1900s, and the second was the late 30s, early 40s. And in the late 30s and early 40s, it was seismic reflection and new technologies that came along. And that's the industry always finds new ways to develop resources and find oil that they previously thought that we couldn't produce. So I'm an optimist when it comes to the future.
So we did some work in kind of, I guess it was southernish Indiana, the Washington area. And a lot of the old oil fields get bought out by some of these foreign countries, come in almost, it reminds me of private equity, where they'll come in and buy these and then kind of squeeze it for what it's worth. Are you seeing a lot of that in Illinois?
Not a lot, but honestly, I think that we need some outside, companies and capital to come in. So we kind of welcome that. So we'll see how that shakes out. I think that that's going to be a factor in getting production back up. We like that everybody is local right now, and we're an aging industry. A lot of the folks that have production right now are kind of hoping to retire, I assume someday. So it's going to take some outside companies, I think, to get things going back in the right direction for sure.
Some revitalization.
Yeah.
So as you're representing, you're on this board. So another question I've got is, are you dealing a lot with trying to coordinate with solar, these new renewable energies that are coming in, and trying to use surface for energy projects? Are you? You're not representing them, right? You're not.
No. I represent just the folks that contribute to our assessment. So that's oil producers and royalty owners. So I try to keep up on all the other forms of energy that are coming in, and it's honestly, I don't know a whole lot about it. And people ask me all the time, how does a solar release works? Is that bonded? That things like that. And I think there's a misconception that maybe they aren't. But I'm glad to be able to have some folks here that know for sure, and maybe you could speak to that. But there's a lot to keep track of, and I kind of try to stay in my lane. Sometimes you can get off out of your lane a little bit, but I try to keep up on all that. I know there's a lot going on, or there was a lot going on last year as far as wind and solar, and it's that and data centers and things like that. Yes. That's kind of the new fracking,
Yeah. For sure. Data centers, especially. Yeah.
I go to schools, and I think we always assume that just the mere mention of the word fracking is going to trigger everybody, but we actually do an informal survey right off the bat and say, raise your hand if you've heard of fracking or hydraulic fracturing. And very rarely will anybody even raise their hand. It's kind of
fascinating.
It's kind of faded.
Yeah.
As far as being a topic that people are talking about.
When you mentioned
change.
Yeah. But there's not a lot of fracking happening in Illinois, right? Is that what you said earlier?
Right. Well, we've hydraulically fractured vertical wells going back to the early 50s. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's much lower volume, obviously, and there's some multi-stage vertical fracking going on. So it's nothing new. And honestly, before 2012, it's not even something that was on anybody's radar as being an issue. I think that's why everybody was so caught off guard about it. But when it started in Pennsylvania, in Texas, in Oklahoma, all of a sudden it was it took on a life of its own and became this big hot button issue. But fracking's been a big part of Illinois' oil industry since the 50s. In fact, that was another technology that when they started using that on vertical wells here, that led to a production spike. But we haven't had any of the shale development or anything like that. And I think that's because there's especially from the outside, the bigger companies think that the regulations that came out in Illinois are too restrictive or not. Maybe it's easier to do it somewhere else and not have to jump through all the hoops you do here. but yeah, it's nothing new here.
Yeah.
Fracking has been used for decades and will continue to be used.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if the one of the reasons it became such a hot button issue is because we were in the Barnett Shale and they were drilling under, they would find a place to drill and then they would drill under subdivisions,
Yeah.
And, in the past it's like you're dealing with some farmers, 3 or 4
Mhm.
farmers. Well, now you're dealing with 300 or 400 people who live in this subdivision that you're having to get a
Right.
lease from each and every
Well,
one of them.
And literally putting rigs right in the middle of downtown Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Right. You would have these huge sound barrier walls and then a rig right
Yeah.
next to a skyscraper.
Yeah.
And it was wild. And of course that's going to raise concerns. And then you had the documentaries that were showing the water light on fire and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gasland, of course,
Yeah.
which has been completely thoroughly debunked
Yeah.
to the point where, I mean, I think Josh Fox even admitted that it was completely fabricated, but the message was it didn't matter because we need to go green or whatever.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it means justify the ends or whatever. That documentary had a lot to do with the uproar, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember watching that before I got involved in all this with my wife. And she was sitting there saying, I can't believe this. And it was coming from a place of, I had a little background at that time. I mean, we're talking 2012, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I viewed it skeptically, but I could see how someone like her and, millions of other people just like her could watch that and really be frightened by it. But it's, to my knowledge, the whole thing has been pretty much debunked, especially the flaming faucet scene. So,
well, it was that time when those kind of documentaries were coming out, like Super Size Me, where he was literally eating like 2 Big Macs a day and getting fat, and you're like, oh, okay, well.
Which that documentary's also been debunked. I guess the guy was drinking a 5th of whiskey or something a day too. Probably had something to do with his health problems.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's when you're watching those documentaries, you got to remember that they're mainly for entertainment, and the shock value is part of that. So,
and we had what was the Matt Damon movie that came out around that time? It was
Promised Land.
Promised Land,
yeah.
Where basically the whole thing is
where Matt Damon was a landman, right?
Yeah, and he ultimately repents. Basically, was I think
right?
Like
I never watched it, but
it's
and Jim from The Office was the guy that was pretending to be an activist. And he actually worked for the oil company. Yeah, that one wasn't as effective, and it's kind of surprising because those guys are big stars. But I remember watching that as well and being like, wow, this is, the reverse has kind of happened with Landman, where Landman, for all of its inaccuracies and over the topness, just by Billy Bob Thornton's charisma or charm alone, has actually been a net positive for the industry. It's strange to me how that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest question I get all the time. Hey, you watch Landman? And they'll ask me this, that, and the other. I'm like, yeah, it's don't take everything in that show as fact. It's entertainment, and keep that in mind. But
I have a working theory that we'll probably talk about Landman on this podcast quite a bit over the next few months, because it is
sure. It's in the zeitgeist.
Yep.
So it's out there in the air. So we do a lot with solar and wind, and one of the things that surprises people about those is how involved they get with the minerals, and so because they're wanting to use the surface estate and to use that. So like Jeremy was talking about White County or Williamson County, one of those counties where there's historic production. You'll have these people who own the minerals, and you can't prevent them from enjoying their minerals, right? And so it all gets super complicated, and so. That's why I was asking. I was curious if you guys had to deal with that at all. But.
No. And I don't envy you guys for like that. The show Landman doesn't deal with the mundane and the complications with severed minerals and things like that, and all the different issues that, especially in Illinois, that are probably a big headache to get ironed out.
Well, you want to
For a
call up
young
the solar
person-
company. I was going to say, you just want to call up the solar company and be like, if you go north 3 or 4 hours, you're not going to have to deal with 400 mineral owners.
Yeah.
Like, just like don't choose White County to put your solar field in.
Right.
Go north.
Yeah, it gets really, really difficult to, I'm sure, track down hundreds of different people
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
scattered all over the
it's-
country.
It's difficult. It can be tedious and monotonous, and the landman glorifies this job that can really just be about mundane details and going to the courthouse. And it's like any other job. It's got its great upsides, and it's got its daily grind that you just got to push through. And so,
Right. And reality is always less entertaining and more of a grind than what you see in the media or on TV shows or documentaries.
yeah, and that's part of what you do, right? You help push back against those misconceptions.
Yeah.
Like as you go to schools, like what are some of the most common misconceptions that you're dealing with? You said some of them don't even know about fracking anymore, but
And fracking is not really an issue at all. It's really more curiosity of why do we have oil in southern Illinois in a certain area, and why is there none in northern Illinois? So, and things like that aren't hot button issues. It's just genuine curiosity.
Yeah.
Earth sciences is not an emphasis in our public education system anymore. So we always try to bring a geologist or a petroleum engineer so they can, if something, they have an in the weeds type question, that could be answered. So, but more people are just fascinated about the geology of Illinois and why this industry has been part of our state for 125 years. A lot of people have no idea that we even have oil wells in the state. The further north you go, that's more the surprise or the topic of discussion. So it's been a big deal here for more than a century.
well, that's a cool place to be. So mainly your job is educational and dealing with people who are actually curious.
Yeah.
So things have changed as you look towards the future. Do you think you see any changes that you think are going to happen to the industry, or that you guys are trying to get ahead of or think through?
Not really. I think that one of the things that we always emphasize is energy demand is growing faster than we're finding the ability to meet that demand. So what we always emphasize is here is kind of geek out on them and show them a chart of current energy demand. And it looks like a mountain almost. We always call it the energy mountain. And look how much in my lifetime, the population in 50 years, our population in this world has doubled. And this explains why we have all these different energy sources. But here's what they project. And with data centers and all the different things, with India and other Asian countries, the standard of living is improving. We're going to need more energy. And that's a good thing. Energy, the more energy you have in a country as an individual, the better your life is. So we say with energy, any source of energy, you're going to have some environmental impacts. No energy is truly clean. We need it. We have to have more of it. Oil and gas is going to be a major part of this throughout your lifetime, even if you're a young person. So let's talk about, first of all, we want more energy. How are we going to deal with the environmental issues better moving forward? And, I think that's the basic message we have. And that there are going to be ways to, we've improved our environment. I mean, you take a look at all the major emissions since 1970 in the United States, they've declined about 86%, while our population and GDP has just exploded. So we can continue to have relative to the rest of the world, a very high standard of living and improve our environment as well. at the same time. So,
And you guys, you're actively involved with that, improving the environment, right? That's another arm of what you're doing, not just the education. So I don't even think we've talked really about that. So what does that look like?
What we are trying to do is clean up these legacy sites, and we focus particularly on the tank batteries that aren't necessarily covered with the bonds that could go back decades and decades. And the IDNR has a well plugging program that they're doing a much better job with in getting wells plugged, especially particular wells that are leaking and whatnot. So, but our program has been established to take care of the other infrastructure at production sites, mainly these tank batteries. And most of them, there's not leaking or anything like that. They're just an eyesore. It's a big agriculture state. It's in the way of the farming, taking away land that can be productive for crops. So right now we're doing a bunch of cleanups in Sangamon County, which if you go a little bit, you get about Shelby County, Illinois, where the glacial drift stop. Basically, the soil it goes from clay in where we are in poor farm ground, even though we still farm, to just the best farm ground imaginable. And the more of these tank batteries we can get cleaned up and get out of the way and get that back to farmable ground, the better, because it's really good farmland up there. And even where these tank batteries have sat, these sites are returned to productive agriculture, usually the next planting season after they're removed.
Oh, wow.
So,
how's the removal process go?
Okay, so the sites are regulated by the IDNR, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. So once they are legally abandoned, they'll notify us, and we'll hire usually an excavation company or a oil field service company that has the equipment needed to take those out. And we'll go in and, of course, remove the flow lines and the surface infrastructure. They'll level and treat the soil, do the soil amendments, and after that process is complete, the IDNR will either approve or say you need to go back in and do more soil remediation. But really, with most of these sites, there hasn't been a saltwater release or saltwater kill. So there's rarely any issues with the soil as far as the tank battery sites goes. So, but everything is approved by the IDNR to go in there, and then afterwards they approve the restorations. And I can't remember one time where we've had any issues with getting the site approved by the IDNR remediated.
So how are you having to basically coordinate various departments and agencies, or is this largely volunteer driven? How's that working?
I handle the outreach to the landowners, and they basically give us the written permission, legal permission to go in and clean up the sites. And as far as we don't do anything with the EPA or anything. If it's a site that the EPA or some agency like that is involved, that's usually the IDNR deals directly with them. So,
okay.
Yeah.
But you're doing the soil work and all that.
Yes.
Right? Is that volunteer based? Like, are you just, how is that? How are you getting the people to do that? Like, what do the teams look like on the ground?
The contractors that do the remediation.
So you contract it out and do that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So IPRB isn't going in there with,
I didn't know. Yeah.
Bobcats or whatever and track hose and things like that. So that's
fun, but yeah.
Yeah. So we have a list of about 24 contractors. So we have competitive bidding, which keeps our costs down as much as possible. And even it puts our industry to work and the local excavation companies. So it's a win-win for everybody. It beats just having a tank battery that's been there for 20, 30 years, sit there 20, 30 years more and just eventually rust out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Serving no purpose
Right.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So as far as your connection with oil and gas, that goes back about 4 generations. Is that what you said? I was
Yes,
curious.
correct.
I was curious if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my great grandpa was a school teacher, farmer, and also was a pumper.
Okay.
Where I grew up, there's a pretty major oil field, the St. James Field. So this is the case throughout Southern Illinois, where local farmers would work in the industry either on rig crews when drilling was going on, or a lot of them became pumpers though. So that's my family's background. Is nope, they I don't think there was any formal training, or we didn't have a lot of production for sure. Pretty modest, incomes throughout our families. But my great grandpa did it. My grandpa worked for ExxonMobil when they still had production in the Loudon field. So my dad grew up. Everybody just kind of grew up around it and knew the ropes, knew how to do the job basically as a pumper. So my dad wanted to get in the oil industry out of high school. He ended up going to work for Caterpillar up in Decatur. It was a really good job. But after he retired, he took over pumping for my grandpa. I'm not really more of a tech guy, writer. Not like I say, my dad's a Category 5 redneck. He just has all the skills. So when I got when he's wanting to retire now, and he realizes that I have no business being a pumper, at least right now. But fortunately, I was, able to find another avenue in the industry that fit my skill sets a little better. So that's why I haven't carried on the pumper tradition, but all 4 generations going back to my great grandpa have worked in the industry in some way.
That's really cool.
That's awesome. So you're carrying on that tradition and helping continue the tradition with younger people.
Yeah, in ways that great grandpa and Grandpa Lowell would have never imagined would exist. That there'd be a PR element or an education element, or you do a podcast, things like that.
Yeah, there's always this connection. I was an English major by training, and there's this great poem by Seamus Haney where he's looking out, watching his dad garden and thinking about, well, I can't be like him out there hoeing the potato. And so, but I do have my pen. I can guard him with that. And so he plows away, and it's great.
Yeah.
So,
there's been several times where I've been, out with my dad, and he's like, go gauge that tank. And I would gauge the tank, and he'd grab the gauger out of my hand and be like, no, you're doing it wrong. It's like you're lucky that you can write and that you're good with that sort of thing, because it's just something that I haven't naturally been able to do. But 20 years from now, I may be out there, and a lot of technology has come along where technology may help me do his job in 20 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Because those wells have been, he's pumping wells that have been producing since the 1930s, and they still kick out 1 or 2 barrels a day and produce very little water. So there's a chance they'll still be kicking along 20 years from now. So,
yeah. And like you said, with technology, who knows, we may find a way to revamp some of these wells, or like you said, go deeper, find more. It's an exciting, especially as technology is changing so rapidly. Yeah.
I was in a meeting yesterday, and one of the producers mentioned, we are only producing about 40% of the capability from most of these wells right now. And that's one reason that there's hesitancy to plug some wells that may appear to be at the end of their life, because there's technologies that can be implemented they could still produce plenty of oil to make them economical. So,
yeah. So you said that a lot of this is volunteer driven, right?
I am IPRB's only employee, and then we have our board members. Several different companies have involvement. They're all volunteer positions, all 12 of them. And then the engineers and geologists, and also just any volunteers in the industry. We have about a dozen that are pretty consistent volunteers that they're not paid. It's really takes a lot of people to make themselves available and donate their time that makes this work. So we're kind of a very much smaller than Ohio's or Oklahoma's version of this. Kansas has a program, but we have great participation from volunteers throughout the industry.
That's awesome. And so, I mean, if listeners want to get involved, do they reach out to you or?
Yeah, I would be glad to have more folks get involved. We end up calling on the same folks over and over, and I know sometimes they're stretched a little thin. So it would be great. Back in the early 2000s, we were making 2 or 3 presentations during the school year a day because they had so many volunteers. So the industry's smaller than it was back then. So the pool is smaller as well, but they're always looking for folks to get involved and to help out with the program.
And they could do that by looking up Illinois Petroleum Resources Board.
I tell people all the time, I have business cards, but they're kind of irrelevant. If you want to get involved or find out what we're doing, just put in a Google search, Illinois Petroleum Resources Board or Seth Whitehead, and it'll take you down a rabbit hole of all the different things we've done or are doing.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Is there anything that you'd like to say I mean, you do a lot of education. So like something that you haven't been able to say or would like to say to everybody before we sign off?
Well, right now we're really focusing on workforce development, and it's tough because there was a generation that basically we skipped a generation as far as replenishing our workforce. So there's a lot more particularly younger men, high school seniors and younger college and trade school folks young men are getting more involved in the trades, and those are very applicable to our industry. So I would encourage folks to go that direction. They're AI-proof jobs. They pay well. The trading is affordable. So we're really focusing on that now. We're going to start a oil gas program at SIC, Southeastern Illinois College in Carmi, and try to build up the workforce. So that's a big thing we're working on. And also, we're all over the place. Our website, IPRB.org, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram. Be sure to check those out and follow us on those. And that's the best way to keep up with what we're doing.
And I'm sure our awesome producer will put all of those links into the show notes.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you being on. The times are changing, but energy will be here for a long time. And like you said, data centers, all these, there's a need for it. So I hope some young guys are out there listening and they're excited to explore this industry, and people know where to find you. So
yes,
Seth?
IPRB.org. Check it out.
All right, great.
All right.
Thanks. We'll talk to everybody next time.
All right, thank you.
Yep, bye.
The Landcast is a production of Chastain Land and Title. For uncompromising accuracy in land work across oil and gas, commercial, telecom, energy, and more, check us out at chastainland.com. If you enjoyed this conversation, please leave us a review and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us each week as we keep telling the stories of the land industry.